For 4 years, one of the biggest questions in streaming had no answer. Why was Dr. Disrespect banned from Twitch? He never said. Twitch never said. And everyone just kind of moved on. Then 2.5 months ago, an ex-Twitch employee named Cody Connor posted a single tweet claiming he knew the answer. That tweet sent shockwaves through the entire streaming world. Dr. Disrespect lost brand deals, lost a gaming studio contract, lost friends, and basically disappeared. And then last week, for the first time in 2.5 months, he turned his camera back on. And what he said answered some questions, and raised a lot more. For anyone who needs context, Dr. Disrespect is one of the most recognizable streamers in the history of the medium. The mullet, the sunglasses, the mustache, the larger-than-life persona built around being a fictional champion of the 1980s. He built a massive following on Twitch over several years, became one of their highest-profile partners, and then in June of 2020, he was banned from the platform permanently. No explanation from Twitch. No explanation from him. Just gone. And for 4 years, that was just a hanging question mark that the internet had mostly accepted would never get answered. Until Cody Connor decided to answer it himself. Cody Connor is a former Twitch employee, and around 2.5 months ago, he posted a tweet claiming that the reason Dr. Disrespect was banned from Twitch in 2020 was that he had been sending inappropriate messages to a minor through Twitch's private messaging system called Whispers. That tweet spread everywhere immediately, because this was the first time anyone with alleged insider knowledge had publicly stated a reason for the ban. And the internet reacted exactly the way the internet always reacts. Assumed it was true, started dismantling the legacy. The fallout from that tweet was immediate and severe. Dr. Disrespect was demonetized on YouTube. A gaming studio he was working with terminated their relationship with him. Friends and colleagues in the streaming world started publicly distancing themselves. He went from being one of the most recognizable personalities in gaming to someone nobody wanted to be associated with. And through all of it, for 2.5 months, he said almost nothing. A few tweets here and there that were met with overwhelming hostility. And then silence. The kind of silence that the internet tends to interpret as guilt. And then last week, Dr. Disrespect went live. And it was immediately clear this was not a normal stream. This was a prepared response. He started by explaining why he had never spoken publicly about the ban for 4 years. The reason was legal. There was a lawsuit against Twitch pending, and as part of the arbitration process, all parties were prohibited from discussing the case publicly. That lawsuit was eventually resolved and settled. But even after the settlement, both sides were still legally prohibited from speaking about it. Which means for 4 years, the reason he never explained himself was not because he was hiding. It was because he was legally prevented from doing so. Then Dr. Disrespect turned his attention to Cody Connor. And this is where things get more interesting. Because if the settlement meant both parties were legally prohibited from discussing the case, then why did Cody Connor, a former employee who was not even working at Twitch at the time, decide to tweet about it? And the answer that emerged when people started digging into Cody Connor's history was not particularly flattering for him. Old tweets surfaced showing Cody Connor using Dr. Disrespect's information to try to sell tickets to his own live performances. In one tweet, he literally wrote that if his show sold out, he would explain why Twitch banned Dr. Disrespect during his set. He used someone else's confidential situation as promotional material for his own career, multiple times. After addressing Cody Connor's motives, Dr. Disrespect moved into the actual denial. He stated clearly that he never sent any sexual or graphic messages or images to the Twitch user in question. He said that Twitch's own trust and safety team had internally admitted that the whisper messages did not constitute sexting. He said the messages were, in his words, mutual bantering with inappropriate jokes that were taken out of context by someone deliberately trying to find something to use against him. And he pushed back on the characterization of the messages as sexting by asking whether Cody Connor even knew the legal definition of the word. These are strong denials. But then he said something that complicated his own argument significantly. Here is where the stream got confusing. During his denial, Dr. Disrespect suggested that perhaps nobody had considered that the Twitch user might have been over the legal age of consent at the time. He implied the user might not have been a minor at all. But here is the problem with that argument. In his very first statement responding to the original Cody Connor tweet, Dr. Disrespect himself had written the following words. Were there Twitch whisper messages with an individual minor back in 2017? The answer is yes. He used the word minor himself in his own statement, which means the argument that maybe she was not a minor directly contradicts what he himself had already confirmed in writing. He either confirmed it himself or he is now saying his own first statement was wrong. Neither of those options makes the situation cleaner. Here is where the stream got confusing. During his denial, Dr. Disrespect suggested that perhaps nobody had considered that the Twitch user might have been over the legal age of consent at the time. He implied the user might not have been a minor at all. But here is the problem with that argument. In his very first statement responding to the original Cody Connor tweet, Dr. Disrespect himself had written the following words. Were there Twitch whisper messages with an individual minor back in 2017? The answer is yes. He used the word minor himself in his own statement, which means the argument that maybe she was not a minor directly contradicts what he himself had already confirmed in writing. He either confirmed it himself or he is now saying his own first statement was wrong. Neither of those options makes the situation cleaner. There was one more specific allegation from the original story that Dr. Disrespect addressed directly. The claim that he had intended to meet the user at TwitchCon. He denied this completely and specifically. He said he never intended to meet the user in person, that no plans were ever made to meet at TwitchCon or anywhere else, and that they never met in person at any point. This is a clear and specific denial of a specific allegation. No contradictions here, unlike the minor question. He was direct. And if that specific claim from Cody Connor was false, it does raise legitimate questions about the accuracy of the other things Cody Connor said. The biggest unanswered question that this entire stream did not resolve is a simple one. Where are the chat logs? This situation has been ongoing for 4 years. There are alleged messages at the center of everything, and yet nobody has seen them. Not the public, not journalists, not anyone outside the legal process. And this matters because Dr. Disrespect's entire defense rests on his description of those messages as innocent banter taken out of context. But descriptions of messages are not the same as messages. If the chat logs showed what he says they show, releasing them would end this conversation entirely. The fact that they have not been released, despite him having every financial and reputational incentive to release them, is the detail that makes it hardest to fully accept his version of events. So what does this all add up to? Here is what the stream actually established. 1. Cody Connor appears to have had questionable motives for leaking confidential information and used it for personal gain before the public leak. 2. The legal prohibition on speaking publicly explains 4 years of silence in a way that is at least plausible. 3. Dr. Disrespect denies the messages were sexual or explicit and says Twitch's own team agreed. 4. He contradicted his own previous statement about the user being a minor. 5. The chat logs that would resolve everything remain unreleased. None of this fully clears him. None of this fully condemns him. And that is exactly where the situation sits right now. Here is where I land on this situation. Cody Connor is a clout chaser who leaked confidential information for personal gain. That part is clear and the evidence supports it. Dr. Disrespect probably did not send explicitly sexual messages to the user. His denials on that specific point are consistent, and Twitch's own team apparently agreed internally. But there is a meaningful difference between not sexting someone and the situation being entirely innocent. He confirmed in his own writing that the user was a minor. He had private conversations with that minor that were inappropriate enough to get him permanently banned from the largest streaming platform on Earth. The chat logs remain unreleased. And until they are released, the most honest position anyone can take is that this situation is not fully resolved. Not by the stream, not by the denials, and not by Cody Connor's tweet.